Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition, the second edition of the Mac and Forth live show. And we are here once again. My name, as always, is Mr. Carl Madden. Hopefully that popped up when I said that. And also joining me this week, I'm very glad to say, because I don't like being on my own, because it's far too scary. We have Mr. Dean Murphy himself. How you doing, Dean?
There I am. Hi, how's it going? Thanks for inviting me.
It's going well. You're the only one that agreed to come on, so you know I've got that small problem there. But firstly, let's start off by saying hello to everyone I can see who's already typed comments in the chat room. So hi Guy, hi Mark, hi Tone, and hi Paul. How are you all doing out there? So it's fantastic. In fact, if this is your first time coming to join us on the live show and you're new, just type in the comment "new" so I can say hello to you. Because it's always nice to stay friendly and introduce ourselves, isn't it? It's good. So what have you been up to, Dean, other than doing the show on Thursday?
Well, I've been barbecuing a lot during lockdown.
You wasn't doing the show on Thursday. I just realised.
I wasn't. No, I actually skipped out the show to run some Morrison's and get some shopping because I like doing shopping midweek and very late. So I realised I had no food for the weekend.
So you put food and well-being before the show.
I always put food and well-being before the show.
Oh, we've got lovely Apple TV join us now, as Steve as well joined us also from the show. I think lovely Apple TV's Alan, actually. I'm not 100% sure about that. But here we are. So what are we going to talk about today then, Dean? Because it was your idea, subject for this video.
Well, I gave you a few choices. I said I can talk about knife sharpening because that's one of my new lockdown hobbies.
Very disturbing.
It's basically rubbing metal on stones, and that's about it really. What was the other thing? Barbecues, because I've been barbecuing a lot because there's nothing else to do when the sun's nice and you can't actually leave the house apart from go to the garden. And the third thing is my, dare I say, profession, software development, more specifically iOS and macOS development. So that's probably the one to go for, I think.
It is probably the one most of the listeners of the show probably know you for. So of course you shot. Well, you didn't shoot to fame instantly, but you had a very successful app early on because of you saw an opportunity and you took advantage of it. Like the timing came together perfectly for you at the time. But you did have you were writing little apps before Crystal came along, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, I've pretty much taught myself software development since, I don't know, probably the early noughties when I was making websites just out of butchering HTML and PHP, and I think JavaScript came along and I tried to do that. And then I got the iPhone and I tried to learn iOS development, failed. I tried again, I failed. Apple made it a bit easier year on year. I failed again, started again, failed again. And eventually it just clicked. Eventually, after reading lots of things and trying it, it eventually clicked, and I could start making stuff and diagnosing things and getting it all working together. And then, that's all just in my spare time. I just learned that.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and then you did it. You went all in. You quit your job. You did the whole developer thing. You bought your first mansion. You bought your first Ferrari, I'm sure. Was that you? Or was I thinking of someone else?
It was a Lamborghini, actually.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Two of them, actually. His and hers.
And now you've plummeted so low, you come on the Mac and Forth show on a weekly basis.
Yep, that's pretty much it. No, I was working night shift for an IT company, and in the middle of that, iOS 9, I want to say, was coming out, and in there was the ad blocking or content blocking functionality within Safari. So previously to that, you couldn't block ads in Safari, not without, I guess, jailbreaking and or going through a VPN or something crazy like that, which is beyond most people's needs and wants. So I started experimenting with how it actually works, and then I started blogging about it, and these blogs started getting picked up by the likes of TechCrunch, The Verge, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. I was getting phone calls in the middle of the night while working night shift and speaking to these journalists. And I kind of decided to try and turn it into a product, turn all this attention into a product. And that's how Crystal came about, and then that later got me a job with AdBlock Plus, or with a company called IO who makes AdBlock Plus. And now I work on AdBlock Plus for Mac and iOS, and I'm part of a development team. And yeah, I pretty much I feel like I've kind of like cheated my way into the development industry because I'm kind of going through the back door, just making something popular, get recognized, and going through that way. So yeah, it was quite an interesting process. It wasn't conventional by most means.
And like you say, here you are today. So so is Crystal still under development? Do you still maintain the whitelisting and all those things in it?
It is, yes, and there's actually a new version coming out soon, which I know you've been testing it, and a couple other people have been testing it, and it's kind of just flown under the radar a little bit. So I'm just revamping it a lot and just making it look nice and look modern. It still doesn't support iPhone 10 devices. That shows you how, dare I say, neglected it's been. So yeah, I'm just trying to make it a lot more modern, a lot more nicer, look good, and just be a good modern citizen on the iOS platform, while still also improving the ad blocking on it.
Good, because ads. Can you block pop-ups now, please, Dean? Because I'm getting sick to death of EU pop-ups all the time.
That's actually going to be in it. Hopefully, blocking banners, blocking all the GDPR warnings and stuff, all the little GDPR pop-ups and banners, trying to block them as much as possible. Sometimes it doesn't make sense because some websites, if you don't click the accept button, if you don't see it and you don't click the accept button, the website will just fail completely. So we can't block all, or shouldn't block all of them, but for the ones that make sense, we're trying to do that.
Just get ridiculous. It was meant to help us. It just made life so much worse. But well, so what we're going to, like I say, we're going to talk to you today about how you do your work and things that you've used in the past and tools that you've used and take advantage of to this very day. And then maybe look ahead at WWDC, which is coming up very shortly. In fact, it should have already been on if we go by previous years. And you was lamenting the fact just before we started like streaming that you're not over there and meeting all the friends and stuff like this. But we're obviously going to get a very different WWDC this year, which we all still have no idea what's going to happen or how they're going to present it. So we're looking forward to that. But so how did you start off? What tools? If you wanted to get into developing, I think the first thing to make clear is it's not necessarily just the technical aspects that are required. There's other factors as well. Like you have to kind of be at least artistic to some degree. Just if you just want to have a nice, clean looking layout, for example, design the graphics, you can always pay someone on Fiverr to do it, but I wouldn't suggest you do that. But I mean, people just think that maybe developers are just maths whiz and computer whizzes, but there's more to it than that, isn't there? You have to also become your own, public PR department as well, and get your information out there and advertising whiz, and there's so many things that you don't even think of when it comes to designing an app.
Yeah, to be a truly independent developer, just making apps and releasing them, which is I do a few apps on the side with some friends, and you have to wear many hats. You have to be a designer. You have to, like you say, do PR, do marketing, and look at the numbers. Where working for a company, you're kind of pigeonholed to some extent in your team, your department, on what you focus on. So for example, with AdBlock Plus, when I work on that, I don't have to worry about the marketing of it or the SEO, ASO of it, which is, search engine optimization, app store optimization, because there's other people whose job it is just to focus on that, which is pretty great. So, for an independent developer as well, I don't, with AdBlock Plus, I don't have to worry about design too much because we've got a designer on hand to create whatever we want. We just tell them what we need, or the project manager tells them what they need, and it gets done. And of course, I've got some input into that, and other people within the team have different inputs in different areas. But for the most part, it's quite nice not having to wear all the hats and just focus on one thing, which is, in my case, code.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, once you work for a company, you're no longer a one-man band. So, yeah, it obviously makes sense. I'm just saying, most developers dream of making, that one app, and They sometimes forget, because when I used to do an old show where I was talking to developers, and every single one of them like said again and again and again, it's actually designing the application is the easy bit. Getting it out there, that's the tough bit, because there's just so much out there. You just get lost in the ocean of applications and sites and whatnot. So what would you, if someone was beginning, if someone wanted to head out onto this road of developing for iOS or Mac, where would you suggest they start nowadays?
That's a tricky one because it all depends on what kind of experience they have. Coming from no experience, I highly recommend checking out Playgrounds. That's an app on iPad and also Mac. And there we go. We've got a nice little clip in there. This is something that Apple creates, and it's basically a very, very toned down version of Xcode, which just lets you focus on code. It's got lots of tutorials that Apple's built in that just gets you very acquainted to the basics of Swift, which is the program language that primarily is used on Apple platforms these days. And outside of that, I've actually bought a course for my daughter from someone called Sean Allen, and he has a very good course for just getting to grips from knowing nothing to learning how to make your first app. So we're going through this at the moment. The price is there. I think I picked up when it was on sale, but it's about just shy of $50 now. And he really explains it very well. He's a self-taught developer as well. So he knows that kind of progression of what needs to be taught and how it's taught, and what's worked for him, what's not. There's a lot of stuff for free. The first couple sections are free, and then if that works, if you find that you're making progress, it's good to just pay over some cash and just go for the course. And there's a nice little community involved as well. So if you get stuck on something, you can ask questions, and either Sean will reply or someone else within the community will reply as well. And my daughter's really enjoying it. How old is she? 8 years old. So she's picking it up. We have to go over some lessons twice, and I'm quite thankful I'm here as well, so I can kind of explain things to her when sometimes it might not make sense to her brain as being quite young. So that's quite handy. And another thing is Hacking with Swift. This is a really great website, really great resource. There's a lot of things on it that I use. If I get stuck on something, I'll type something into Google, and I don't know, 50% of the time this will be one of the top resources. And the guy who runs it, Paul, he runs this thing called 100 Days of Swift, where it's got, I think it's like 100 lessons, and every day you can do a small lesson and learn something new, and it all just builds up, and then before you know it, you're making apps. So it just teaches you the basics, and then just takes you through it. And these are some great resources that I really, really wish I had like 5 or 6, 7 years ago when I started trying to get my head around this stuff. I'm just doing the maths in my head. I can't really think how long it's been. And Sean Allen as well, he does 100 Days of Swift UI, which is one of his new free courses that he's put online. And Swift UI is, as Apple described it last year, the future of development on Apple platforms, of UI development on Apple platforms. So this is making software that can run anywhere from the watch to the Mac using a very small amount of code, using this very modern UI framework, which is a lot more similar to some of the other frameworks on other platforms. And it just takes away a lot of the boilerplate stuff that you have to write to just get, like, for example, a table view, just a list of things to show. You can just type in list, and then it will just show a list. So it's a lot more. I'm trying to oversimplify it as much as possible. So sorry if anyone picks me up on this, but it's a really great way to get into Swift at the moment. I think now has never been a better time to, especially with lockdown as well. Now has never been a better time to just try some of these free resources or even the paid resources and just see where you get.
So as Swift, I mean, we all know about Swift, obviously, in iOS and stuff like that, because we talk about it all the time. Well, we do when it's announced in some way in the news. But Apple, I guess, have been continuously developing. It's not an Apple thing, though, is it? It's an external thing, but Apple leans into quite heavily. Is that right?
No. Swift is 100% made by Apple. They make it
Okay.
in-house. It's open source, and they're focusing on running it on obviously Apple platforms. It was run on Linux as of a couple of years ago, and as of the next version, they're trying to get it to run on Windows as well and get it stable on Windows. So it's a programming language that's kind of spreading out, starting with Apple and it's spreading out to other platforms.
Good stuff. Well, if you're watching this and you've got a question about how to get started, maybe in iOS development, just put Q in front of your question in the chat room, and I'll read it out. Oh, hang on, we've got one straight away. he must have been waiting with copy and paste. So this is from Mark. What's the jump from Playgrounds to Swift in terms of getting Hello World, for example?
Well, with Swift UI, you just go to Xcode, file, new project, give it a name, click run, and there's your Hello World. It's already made for you, so you don't have to do any work. It's already done the Hello World work for you.
I could probably do Hello World in BASIC, I think,
but,
and then say print, go to 10.
But yeah, with Playground, you're not making apps. Basically, you're making these very small experiences which run in the window parallel to it, and it's very good for just trying small little snippets of code. But to make an app, you need Xcode, and that 100 Days of Swift, 100 Days of Swift UI, them two courses, I highly recommend just to dip your toes into. And that really shows you from using Playgrounds first, I think, to just learn some of the basics, to jumping into Xcode and actually making an app.
And Dave, we've got another question. I believe this guy is asking this for many of us. How do I make my brain bigger to do app development?
I think by doing that is a good start. That's a good just kind of mentally make it bigger. But for me, it was just practice. Just practice, trying, failing, failing. And every year, Apple made it easier and lowered the bar, and that really helped. Like when I first started, they didn't have what's called ARC, which is automatic reference counting, which basically means you have to, in very simple terms, allocate and deallocate memory manually. So you have to say, allocate some memory, add this string of text to the memory, and I don't need this anymore, deallocate this memory. Like,
my God.
Yeah, it's quite low level compared to what we do today. And now we just say, var text equals string, and then iOS for the most part, or Apple for the most part, will handle that memory management for you. So every year they've just lowered the bar of how easy it is to get into making apps and how easy it is to make great apps as well.
Okay, got another question here from Alan. A couple of years ago, Stanford published a free iOS app dev course. Is there a modern Swift version, and is it any good?
Good question. I actually just thought of this about 15 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, that I forgot to add it into our little show notes. Stanford are releasing the exact same course pretty much every year, updated to Apple's whatever's new that year. So this year they've got the exact same course pretty much with using Swift UI. So I highly recommend checking it out. It only started about a month ago, this course, and there's about 3 or 4 episodes out there. And the guy who runs it, Paul Fogarty, it's the same guy who's run it every year. He used to work at Next, so he's very old Apple. So it's quite inspiring, someone of his caliber using these very new APIs, these very new technologies that Apple's putting out literally, 6 months, 7 months before the actual course started.
Oh, good stuff. I'm glad it's developing, because I remember when it first came out, there was people saying, "Oh, no one's going to adapt this, and it's too hard, or it's too simplistic, it hasn't got enough protocols or whatever in their programming language, bytes or whatever they call them, in there to ever become successful." So I'm glad it's getting stronger. So let's just take a short break now for a moment, Dean, before we move on to some of the tools of the trade that you use. Firstly, I just want to say some hi to some people. So hi Nitrox for joining us, and also a Shropshire lad has joined us as well. So how you doing? So thank you for joining in this live stream, which although we are doing it at the moment on a Saturday at 3:00 in the afternoon, once we get back to some kind of normalcy, that might change around a little bit, because normally I'd be down London in a pub around this time. So, and I'm sure many of the viewers watching it would also be down the pub around this time, watching football or something, as David pointed out last week. But at the moment, here we go. So, how much new Swift stuff are you expecting to see at WWDC, in a couple of weeks?
Well, probably one of the biggest things I'm waiting for is more Swift UI. So I'm expecting Swift UI 2.0, essentially. Swift UI came out last year and it simplified a lot of things, but it had a lot of drawbacks. For example, there's a lot of things Swift UI can't do because Apple's made UI frameworks, I don't know, for the Mac for, I think, 10, 15 years. AppKit has been around. UIKit on your iOS has been around since iOS 1.0 or Apple iPhone OS 1.0. So Swift UI has been out for less than a year. So that's had a lot of things missing from the offset. They acknowledged that, and they said it's going to evolve over time. So a lot of evolutions to Swift UI I'm expecting. Outside of that, I've got no idea. They've really been focusing on VR and AR experiences, and that's improved a lot over the past few years. We probably haven't noticed from the apps that have coming out because nothing's really taken advantage of AR and VR that much. AR and VR that much. But I'm expecting that to keep, especially with these rumors of the glasses coming out in the next year or two. They've really got a good foundation in place for developers.
One more question before we get to the tools. Might ask, could you give an example of what one app, I'm guessing that is, API is and does for a simpleton like me?
Oh, here we go. So API, I think it stands for Application Programming Interface or something like that. So an API is something that Apple makes. Well, in this example that Apple makes to expose something on their platform. So, for example, an API, if you want to get how much battery life is left on the device, that will be an API that you call. So it's basically saying, hello, what's the battery level? And then the API will say, oh, it's at 82%. And you go, okay, that's cool. You can ask again, what's the battery level now? Oh, it's at 20%. Okay, let's do some low power stuff because we don't want to drain the user's battery too much. So does that kind of answer it? It's basically all these different calls that you make within to query different parts of the phone, different parts of the device to ask it something.
Yeah, even I think I understand that one. So that's it's just knowing what APIs to call upon, I guess, at any one time.
Yeah,
so
what order to call them in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to some of the tools of the trade that you use to get your work done. So I'm guessing I know what the most important one is.
You probably do. It will be Xcode, which it's free in the App Store, and it's quite interesting. Like years ago, companies used to charge for this kind of software. Like I remember Microsoft, to get Visual Basic, that used to cost a good few grand if you want to get hold of this. This is basically like, dare I say, like the Photoshop of creating software. It's what I use probably 80-90% of the time, and it's got very mixed reviews.
I was going to read this one actually.
Go for it.
I read this one earlier and I thought, what? Overly complicated, doesn't tell you how to solve issues. Okay, so I was tasked with creating an iOS app for our business. Upon nearing the end of the project and attempting to build it, I would constantly fail for some unknown reason. There is absolutely nothing to help you solve these issues within Xcode except Googling the exact error message you're seeing and hoping someone else has also encountered the issue and posted a fix.
That's programming in a nutshell, that.
Yes, I was about to say. That's virtually everything, isn't it, what we do in life. It's a good product, but unless your job is solely to use Xcode, you're going to have a hard time using it. They need to increase the problem solving within the program. Don't tell me something has failed because XYZ. Tell me what I'd needed to do to resolve XYZ. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, similar to me. I bought this hammer and I gave it a bad review because I just couldn't work out how to make a chair out of it. I've got the hammer, I've got the wood. But it doesn't tell me what to do to get it put together. Yeah, so.
I just had a horrible thought. Say one of our viewers actually wrote that.
That does look similar to a review that we've had on the podcast. That name, I think I do recognise it. But yeah, no. Xcode actually, in a lot of cases, if you make a mistake, it does tell you what you've got wrong. Gives you a little button that says auto fix, and it will try its best to fix it for you. But in a lot of cases, it can't do that because. In some cases, it can tell what you're trying to do. In some cases, it doesn't have a clue what you're trying to do. So it just says, you've done something wrong, and I don't know what you're trying to do, but you should try and look into it and see where the problem is. It offers a lot of sophisticated tools to trace down bugs, to trace down these problems, and ultimately it's your job to read the error message, make sense of it. If you can't make sense of it, Google it, see how other people have got around it. I'm not saying Apple's perfect, because with this very fast moving software pace, if you think Catalina's a bit buggy, the tools that we make apps for on Catalina are just as, if not more, buggy. So yeah, Apple is not perfect by any means, but it's the tool that we use for our job. And to some extent you can blame the tool, to some extent you have to blame the person who's using the tool. It does work both ways.
Well, I just can't believe there's not a Clippy version within Xcode. So, are you trying to design a multi-million-pound app? I can help you with that. What's another tool that you might be using there, Dean?
Another tool, when I'm not in Xcode, I'm normally in a tool called iTerm, which is a terminal app for the Mac. Now, macOS comes with a terminal app, which is perfectly fine by standard. This is an alternative one, which is open source. It's got a lot more features compared to the normal terminal app. So much so that I can't remember what the normal terminal app does and what this one does differently, because I haven't used terminal in several years. I've just used this. It's got a lot more autocomplete features. There we go, a good search feature. It's for times when I have to jump into terminal and log onto different servers and do stuff. This is a great app to use. If you don't use terminal in your daily life, you probably don't need this at all. But if you do use terminal, you should have a look at this, see what the feature sets are, and if it works for you. It's it's a really solid app. And then I use an app called Sublime Text, which is, out of all the text editors I've tried, this is pretty much the best one. Especially with ad blocking. Like, here you go. As you can see on this little screenshot, you can select different areas.
Don't expect me to understand what's going on that screenshot.
Don't expect me to understand either. So you can like select a lot of points and then just edit text from that point, and then you're editing text in like 10 different places, which is pretty great. It's got a lot of advanced features. But for me, mostly with content blocking and ad blocking, I deal with JSON files, which is basically a big giant file of text, which is something like, I don't know, up to 40,000 lines long. And this seems to be the only application that can smoothly work with 40,000 line files, like 14 megabyte text files, essentially. So that's a lot of text you can fit into a text file. Nice. So yeah, when it comes to development, they're the three main ones. Sketch is an app I use, and that's primarily my graphic design tool. When I have to do graphic design, I do it in this app. And it's such a good, powerful app. I've used it for a good few years now. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't normally use Adobe software, and I haven't for a long time. So this is my primary graphic design. When I need to do anything graphic-wise, I jump into this app. And it's got a lot of nice templates for if you're doing app icons. It gives you all the right sizes that you need to export to make it compliant with Apple standards or even Google standards for their app icons. So yeah, it's a really good piece of software that's easy to use and nice to work with.
I mean, that is, like I say, that is one of the hardest things, because you may have the best app in the world, but if it doesn't look nice, if it's not approachable, if the user doesn't feel comfortable using it, they're not going to stick around. Most people download an app, they'll play it for about, interact with it for about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute maybe, and if they can't get out of that what they want, they've moved on, they've gone to something else. It's very quick, because a number of apps are free. It's very quick to pick up, play, judge, and discard. So, things like graphics and presentation. This is why I was saying earlier on that you have to be part artist as well to make your product look attractive, to make people stick around. So yeah, definitely graphics and everything is an important factor of that, and not just graphics, but the layout. They're all totally important, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely makes a difference. They say you shouldn't judge a book by their cover, but people do. You judge an app by its screenshots, by how it looks. If it looks good, if it looks bad, if it looks like, some apps look like a website from 1998. And you look at that and think, if it looks like that, how does it actually perform? You know, is it made? Is it going to work? Probably not. It doesn't inspire that much confidence. But if an app looks good, and acts as it should, follows Apple's human resource, I don't know,
Interface?
human interface guidelines. Yeah, the HIG. It's Apple's publishes human interface guidelines that pretty much everything that developers should follow, and that's basically all the research that Apple's done into how apps should work. Like if you swipe from left to right, it should go back a screen. It doesn't make sense to do from right to left, or to have your interface, your tab bar that describes where you go in the app at the top, because thumbs can't reach up there. Just basic stuff like that, and a lot of advanced stuff as well of how to interact with Siri, for example, or how to design interfaces for the watch. So Apple publishes all that on their website as their human interface guidelines. So that's really worth looking at as well.
Good stuff. Any others that you? I know you've still got one. You've got one left to go. I know we're a couple away, but I just love. Well, we're going to get to this one in a little while, but I just love that one. That is the most impressive app I've seen in so long.
I did save the best one for last.
Yeah.
Next one is Git Tower, and Git is basically it's called a version control system. So what that is, every time you make a save, you can go back to that point. So you're marking this point of history in time that you can always go back to. So as you're making an app, you can make all these different save points across time, and then if you realize you've made a mistake, you can roll it back and go back to the last save or the last two saves, or it basically just keeps track of all the different changes you make across your app, which is quite a complex one. The Git is quite complex, but this is a nice UI that makes it very simple to look at your project, and it's essential, especially if you're working with other developers, because you're all making save points at different times. And yeah, I've tried to simplify it as much as I can. Pasta. This is an app that I started using a couple of months ago, actually. And it's a clipboard manager. So every time you save something to your clipboard on macOS, it will save it. And you can always look at your history. You can save up to 1,000 clippings if you're a pro user, which I think I paid.
How'd you find them?
Well, there's a good search. For example, you can filter it by app, so I can see which apps I've actually copied from. So, for example, if I copy stuff from Xcode, that's probably going to be code related. If I'm copying stuff from Safari, that could be anything. You can filter it by images, so you can just see all the images that you've copied to your clipboard, because I'm always just copying and pasting and just moving data between apps. And there's been a few times in the past where I've copied something and then gone to paste it, and then something else is pasted because I've copied something in between then. So it's just a nice way of just keeping that history there of what you've copied, and you can always recall back to it. It's kind of like just a little dumping ground. Just by pressing Command C is a little dumping ground of things you copy. And now the one that you've been waiting to get to is an app called Rotato, which I just absolutely love the name, Rotato.
Yeah, that as well.
So I don't really use this so much in development, more for promotion of apps. So do you want to describe it, Carl? Or do you want me to?
Well, it's like I say, it's basically templates. It's basically iOS templates. I guess they're all iOS. Let's just quickly look.
No.
Yeah, and what it allows you to do is, there's the video. Let's see if the video explains it as well. So you can create these animations of your software. It might be a bit jerky while it's playing back, but it's perfectly smooth, really. So you can either do a screen recording and show off your app or something you want to show, or you can like do a fly around of your application as it shows there with the Mac opening and you just save them out as movies. You can render it all within the app. You set keyframes about what you want it to do, so you can have some stunning graphics, and then you could import them into something like Final Cut Pro or Keynote, or something like that, wherever you can import stuff.
Yeah, my primary for this is I take a screenshot of the apps I'm working on my phone. I just drag and drop the screenshot into this app. I can move the device into a nice angle, take a picture, and then that's a great template for an App Store screenshot. So in the App Store, if you look at some of the apps, oh, there we go. There's some music. Drum roll, please. If you look at the apps, they've all got you see a picture of the. If you look at an app, the screenshots are normally a picture of a phone with the app inside of it. This just makes it so simple to make good-looking screenshots just by dragging and dropping either a video in or drag and dropping a screenshot in, and then just taking a picture and just moving it around in 3D space, changing the background, changing the foreground. It's a very impressive piece of software, and it just makes it so easy to just make good screenshots to use in the App Store, or to use on your website, to use in promotional materials, to use on posters, to use in YouTube videos. It's there we go.
I just love it. I love that one. I absolutely love, and I can think of many applications to do it. And I remember you told me about this site about 2 months ago, and then I instantly forgot about it until you put it back into the thing today. But yes, I'm definitely going to be using this for various things moving forward, and just to add a bit of excitement. And my camera's gone dead. Oh, it's come back again now. That was a bit weird, wasn't it? But yeah, so many tools there for developers to. I mean, was it as rich as this when you started out? I believe you said it wasn't. So.
Well, no, a lot of the software I've spoke about, I think probably half of it didn't exist when I was learning. And it's not just knowing that it exists. It's knowing that it exists as well. It's knowing what tools are available to you, what tools to work with. So it's always a learning process. There's a lot of tools I haven't mentioned that I can't think of off the top of my head, or that I've used in the past and were great, but I don't have a need for. So yeah, it's great that there's a lot of strength in the developer community to make tools that help each other, and to make apps to help each other, and make tools to make our lives and workflows easier. Like, the less time we spend making screenshots for our apps, the more time we can spend actually polishing the app and just making it look good.
And driving that Ferrari.
Lamborghini.
There you go. Lamborghini, of course. We got a comment from Paul C. Visual Studio Code is a great editor too.
It is.
You know that one?
It is. I tried it when it first came out, and it didn't work for my needs. Like I said, I had like huge giant text files to pass through, and I tried pretty much every text editor, and Sublime Text was the only one that I could get working. But I have used Visual Studio Code as well for other stuff, and it does seem to work pretty well. It's quite a good app.
Good stuff. Well, I think that's pretty much. Again, any questions the chat room might have, please ask them now. Put a Q before the question so I can easily find it. That would be fantastic. Is there anything you're working on that you can tell us about, Dean? I understand you put it under NDAs and God knows what else, either self-imposed or from your company. But anything that we should be maybe looking forward to? If you can't, fair enough. I don't mind you saying that.
Probably the most recent thing I've been working on is an app called Pueblo Vista Radio, and my friend actually owns his own small independent record label, and he has all this licensed music that he has licensed essentially, and he publishes it on Spotify, Apple Music, and other platforms, YouTube, etc. And we kind of went back and forth and started talking about making a radio app. So me, another guy, and him got together and we started fleshing out what a radio app could look like, just for his music. It's all like lo-fi music, so it's very like chilled hip hop beats. And
sorry, what was it called again?
It's called Pueblo Vista. P-U-E.
Pueblo.
Yeah, it doesn't make it easy to spell, does it? Pueblo Vista Radio.
Okay.
And if you can find it,
I'm trying.
I can copy it.
Carry on.
Yeah, so we made that. There we go. That's the one. Yeah, so we published it a couple months ago, and we've had like a really good response. I think we've had over just shy of 150 ratings. That's 38 ratings in the UK. We've got 4.6 out of 5, which is quite nice. And all these screenshots here, these are from Rotato. That's the app we were just talking about. Yeah, they're all from Rotato, which is quite nice. So this is the kind of thing you can do with these. I just drag and drop a screenshot, press Command S to take a screenshot of the app, drag and drop another screenshot, do it again. And there's 5 screenshots just for the iPad. Yeah, and one of the annoying things as a developer is for every language you've got to upload a set of screenshots for every language. So here I support Mac, iPhone, iPad. There's 5 screenshots. That's 15 screenshots just in English. Add in the Spanish translation, that's another 15. Add in
dear.
For every, and you can have up to 10 screenshots per device. So you can have 30 just in one language.
So you need something that's automated like that. Rotato.
Yeah, it really does help. Just take some of the time out of that. But no, it's a very simple app. It literally just plays a radio stream that we set up online, and just plays his music that he's got licensed to him. And it's had a very good reception within the lo-fi community, and yeah, it's doing quite well.
Guy says he's waiting for the Klingon translation.
If he wants to help out with that, he's more than welcome.
Alan asks as well, do you use the simulator or real devices for testing your apps under development?
I use both, actually. So most of the time I'll use a simulator just because it's there, it's convenient, it works for most of the time. So what the simulator is in Xcode, it's got pretty much every device that Apple's made built into it. So you can use, for example, the iPhone SE all the way up to, I don't know, the big giant iPad, the iPad 12-inch thing. And you can test your app across all different devices, all different sizes. So most of the time I use a simulator. So it's like a little virtual iPhone on the Mac. And then the other 10, 20% of the time I do it on device just to see how it feels. Because nothing beats having a device in your hand and actually touching the app that you're working with, as opposed to just like clicking it on a mouse and dragging and dropping and stuff.
Okay, so you've done Mac development, iPad and iPhone development. Are we going to see a watch app anytime soon, do you reckon?
I used to have a watch app. I actually made a watch app when watchOS first came out. And it was called Wrist List. And it was like a little to-do list on your wrist. And it's just very simple. It just synced with your phone. And it didn't really do that well because there's to-do lists is a very competitive market. But it was pretty much just to learn how the watch worked in terms of development and how it syncs data between the iPhone and the watch. And the answer to that is poorly, because for a few years they just kept making changes, and it just got a little bit better. And now with watchOS 6, we've got independent apps, so we can have apps just for the watch. I'm actually looking to bring Pueblo Vista Radio onto the watch as a standalone app, because in watchOS 6 as well, you can have audio streams play. You can play music from play audio from remote audio streams, which is pretty much all the radio app is. So I'm actually looking to try and bring that app over, just to try and experiment with watchOS development again, see how it's changed since I last tried it back with watchOS 2. I think I tried it with. I did kind of like tease an app in our little chat group of something that I might work on.
Don't say that works.
But
just yet.
Yeah, that's another project I'm thinking of. But we'll keep that secret. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
It would be very welcomed by a great many people if you managed to pull that off, though. I know that for sure. Well, I think that's pretty much it for the development. Thank you very much for all that information, Dean.
No, you're welcome. Any other questions? I'm happy to.
How come you don't talk this much on the show normally?
I'm too busy listening. It's like a live show that I can just listen to.
Oh, that's it. And then you think, hang on, I'm actually on this. Right, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully our audience got some tips and stuff. I'll try and put all these links that Dean gave me in the YouTube description once it sorts itself out and is actually live properly. So you can go and follow up any of these links because it will help you out, I hope. But if you're going for the main show, that's pretty much it now. We're done. But obviously we're going to carry on now because we got our lovely chat room here and we can answer some questions. By the way, chat room, 3 thumbs up, please. 3. I don't ask a lot, do we? If you could just hit that thumbs up button as well, that would be fantastic. It helps. So it's good. So like I say, thanks very much, Dean, and wish you all the success moving forward when it comes to these development applications and and finding your new way. The man who was mental enough to leave his job and like go out on a limb and explore. So yeah, fantastic. It's great, and wish you every success on all these endeavours that you're undertaking.
Oh, thank you.
So now we're just going to chat with the chat room for a little while, just to have a bit of fun with them. So that's it, mainly, probably for the rest of the content, unless someone asks a question related to it in the chat room itself. But it's going to carry on now for about 10 minutes because we have a bit of fun.
Get the beers out.
Exactly. As Guy says, every YouTuber has to learn this. Like, share, and subscribe.
Hit the bell button.
Hit the bell, hit that bell, do all those things. It's a nightmare. So who we got? Anyone joined when I was away? Oh, Alex has joined, I see. Brian has joined as well. Anyone I missed out there? I don't know. If you're in the chat room now and you missed the start, just say hi and I'll be able to shout you out in the chat room.
I can't believe no one's asked where I've got this amazing mug from. No one's asked where can I get one of these for myself.
Where could you get one of them? That would be on our merch store, I think. Well, we haven't sold that many. We've not sold hardly anything on our merch store.
Sold at least one.
Oh, and Ron's in the room as well. Hi, Ron. Yeah, one. Well, yeah. Well, actually, two. So I got one as well. So there's a few of us have got them. But yes, if you want to buy a mug,
very, very good quality.
If you want to buy a mug like me and Dean have got, just head on over to the merch store on the macandforth.com page, and you can come and drink from Mac and Forth if you so wish. Your cup runneth over. Oh dear. So there you go. So like I say, second live stream done and dusted. A bit of a hiccup there. Yes, I saw Brian pointed out that I had OBS link because it's a temporary thing until Cam Link 4K comes back into stock somewhere. I'm having to use this like horrible cobbled together thing with screen capture and OBS link, which is a little bit of software that sits between the two. But yeah, so it's good. It's getting there. Slowly, these things that I need are coming back into stock, and I'm buying them up, and it's all good fun. Anyone got any questions they want to ask us while we're here? Before we all head off on our Saturday afternoons to, well, I was going to say go down the pub. That ain't going to happen, is it? Just drink or watch telly or something. Oh dear. Does it come? Does the coffee cup come with pre-stains like Dean's? No, actually, it's normally quite pristine. He's a very mucky boy.
It's because I use very frothy milk. I've got a milk frother in the coffee machine, so it leaves a little trail behind. But it was clean before I used it. It was perfectly clean.
That's all right then. Oh dear. What should we? So what we was talking about. Are you using the Elgato Stream Deck? Yes, I am, Alex. Which allows me just to push a button and go from this to this to this. It's fantastic. Probably a bit expensive for what it is. You can actually do it on the phone as well, but it's a subscription, like £2 a month or something like that. But it does work really well. Paul is saying, do you develop for Android too?
I have in the past, but I haven't for a long time. I found it's very hard to be good at both platforms, I'd rather specialize in Apple platforms than I would Android. The main reason for that is I don't use Android platforms, so I don't feel like I'm best suited to know what a good Android app is and what a good modern Android app is. If I use Android every day, I'd have a better idea of that when I make and design apps and think about what apps I want. But for iOS, I live within the Apple ecosystem, so I just find it so much nicer to just focus on that development-wise. But there's a lot of developers who work cross-platform. There's a lot of tools and stuff, that allow you to do cross-platform development. But a lot of the time you end up with like a very subpar app that doesn't kind of work both great on both platforms. Something that Google's actually brought out is something called Flutter, which is similar to Swift UI, but kind of Google's made it. And it works on Android, it works on iOS, and they're hoping to get it on the web as well. I think that's in beta. So they're hoping, it's one code base. You can deploy it to both platforms and desktop and the web. So that's quite an interesting prospect, but we'll have to see how that pans out.
Nitrox, sorry if I've mispronounced that. How about predictions for WWDC? Now, strangely enough, we are going to do this on the show. I'm sure I'll let Dean answer one or two that he hopes we'll see in a minute. But our plan was to, obviously we're going to do our prediction show the week before the event of WWDC. And then what we was also planning to do with the guys, with all of us, is immediately after the show is finished, WWDC that is, the keynote, if there is one, still no word if there is going to be one, we're assuming there is, but once that's finished, we're going to take to this and do a live stream of our interpretation or thoughts about what we saw. Now, only Dean has agreed to be on camera so far, so I'll probably have to have a graphical representation of Steve and Alan. So that'll work though, because I can still do that. So it should work out fine. So what are two things that you're hoping to see at this year's WWDC then, Dean?
Yeah, I was just thinking with the word predictions, I don't normally make predictions. I normally just make a wish list of what I want.
Certainly.
But two things I'd like to see is last year we made great strides with iPadOS. I'd like to just see that taking more of a divergence from iOS, more of a divergence from macOS, and just more come into its own as a platform. Next, I don't know, more stuff for Apple TV, because I think that's a very underused platform. I think new hardware for Apple TV would be pretty great, and especially with the size limits. And I don't know what could be done there, but I'd just like to see more Apple
Lower
TV
in
stuff.
price would be a good start.
Low in price would be great. It's probably one of my most used Apple products because we use it all day. That's our primary TV thing. I'd like to see on Apple TV more companies use it as their media box. Like I know in different countries, for example, in Switzerland, you have Salt, their network TV cable provider, and they use the Apple TV as their set-top box. I'd like to see, for example, over here, Virgin Media offer that as an option and just have all my Virgin Media TV filtered through the Apple TV. I know some American networks as well, they offer it, TV networks. So I'd like to see more of a push for that, to have this one unified box that covers all the bases.
Yeah, would be nice. I need them to bring out an alternative version, as a cheap version as well. Although they're never going to compete with that Fire Stick. So let's face reality here. Yeah.
One thing that bothers me, I've got for example, I'm just sat next to it like a 2-year-old LG TV, smart TV. It was like top of the, almost like mid-range 2 years ago. It hasn't got Disney Plus on it. It's not got Apple TV on it. It's slow compared to like what the Apple TV is. And the Apple TV, I guess, is probably the same age to the Apple TV 4K. It's about 2-3 year old now. So I think bang for buck, the Apple TV has been great. It pretty much has got better over time. Adding Amazon, I remember there was a time when Amazon wasn't even on it. Adding Amazon, adding Disney Plus, and also Apple TV Plus. So yeah.
We got a comment from Alan here, Dean.
Oh no.
Did you two agree dress code like a pair of teenage girls? Oh, let's both wear our black t-shirts and use our Roadcaster podcasters and our M&F mugs. No, we didn't. It's a pure coincidence. It wasn't put together at all. There was no secret memos that went back and forth. Was there, Dean?
You told me you just did not answer that question.
That's true. Yeah, Brian's right. Apple doesn't do cheap, ever. We do know that, unfortunately. Our wallets attest to that. Well, I think that's pretty much it for us this week, Dean. As I said a little bit earlier, thank you very much for coming on and joining me.
No, you're welcome. It's been a blast.
It's a different experience, isn't it, doing video compared to
it needed
just audio.
Yeah, I mean, normally I just log in 2 minutes before, turn my mic on, and we're ready. But this time we had to get my camera out, and I've got a little tripod right in front of me, so it's blocking my monitor. And I decided to use, instead of using my webcam, which is not the great quality, I've got my digital SLR plugged in, and somehow there's some software that Canon released that let me use it as a webcam, so it looks a bit better than what a normal webcam would. So I just thought I would go that little bit extra effort for you, because I didn't want to look bad next to you, because you've put so much effort into your video workflow or your video setup over the past few weeks.
Well, the pubs have been shut. I've had nothing else to do. That's the problem. This is what happens when you deprive me of the pub.
I was even thinking, if I got any like lampshades, I can just stick my hue bulbs into behind me to get the purple glow. But they're up there, and they don't really do much in this daylight.
It does happen. There you go. See, look, even Brian says your video's great. So,
thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, like I say, I think that's pretty much it. So we'll be anyway. Where on earth can we get hold of you, Dean? Then
I don't know. I don't really do anything online these days.
Well, I'm gonna put your lower third up anyway.
I've got a lower third. I spoke to a doctor about that. I do have a Twitter, but I don't use it.
You and me both, dude.
You can DM me on Twitter, but I don't actually read Twitter. I read Twitter, but I don't post anything on Twitter. I don't use Facebook that much. Yeah, I don't know. Email, I use that sometimes.
Yeah, email. Go back to the old email. That's what I've done. Yep. So anyway, but please, as always, if you've enjoyed this video, we also do a podcast. In case you don't know, seek out Mac and Forth on the podcast app or your podcatcher of choice. We do that every Thursday. Normally publish it Thursday night, Friday morning. It's normally out there and available. Also, if you're viewing this channel and you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because it helps us get up there in the rankings, because we're very small at the moment. I know that, and it's perfectly understandable. But keep an eye out for future video game reviews and things like this. And when I get some sort of decent setup that I'm happy for, I'll be doing like live unboxing shows maybe, or reviews of various pieces of kit I use and things like this. And also, we're going to start off, probably, it looks like it's going to happen anyway, if you're a Patreon subscriber to us, then you're going to get your own private video show as well some point during the week. We're not exactly sure when yet, or what time it is, but we're going to trial one next week. But to get access to that, you have to be a Patreon subscriber. And that's I think that's pretty much it from us this week, until we return again to you hear us on the podcast or see us on the next show. Thank you. Like I say, thanks for joining us again today, Dean.
No, it's been fun. Thanks for inviting me.
And everybody out there, just as always, I want you all to stay safe and just please be nice to each other. Until next time, bye.
Bye.